Diesel remains the workhorse of modern mining, especially underground. Yet the industry is facing a tightening squeeze, tougher occupational exposure rules, deeper mines with hotter environments, and mounting investor pressure to cut emissions. And that's without compromising output. Well, Mammoth Equipment and Exhaust is a company that's been helping miners meet ventilation, emissions, and safety obligations for more than 2 decades. Well, it's a pleasure to welcome the company's Group Marketing Operations Manager, Holden Bunko. Holden, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
Absolutely, Devin. Thanks for having me on.
So underground mining is getting deeper, more mechanized, and I'm curious to know what's the big shift you were seeing around air quality and worker exposure standards at the moment?
The biggest shift that I think that we're seeing at the moment is greater pressures globally around worker safety. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of push to go deeper into the ground, and specifically for underground operations, air quality is a huge concern. Here in Canada, targets were set recently in 2023, I believe, specifically targeting DPM, diesel particulate matter, which is an element of the exhaust that comes off of diesel-powered machines, obviously. And through filtration and stuff, you can reduce the amount of DPM in the air. And specifically, it's measured in either milligrams or micrograms per cubic meter. And so, for example, there's new regulations they're constantly developing. For example, Ontario sort of leads Canada at the moment with their regulation around this, which sits at about a 0.12 milligram per cubic meter, or 120 micrograms per cubic meter, if you like. But we're seeing across the globe tightening restrictions. Yep. I believe even if you look over at Australia at the moment, there's a new proposed restriction, which is going to bring things down to a 0.01 milligram, or 10 micrograms, if you like, per cubic meter. So that focus on worker health and around air quality is at top of mind, I would say.
And I suppose companies have to consider all of those factors when they think about their approach. Now, what are the key pathways to cutting diesel emissions? Ventilation, electrification, or retrofits? And the question is, which parts are mines actually choosing right now?
Well, and it's an interesting question. I think that like you mentioned there are 3 kind of key ways that you can reduce the amount of DPM per cubic meter. Like if we're trying to meet these regulations, if we're trying to keep workers safe, basically what you're looking at are 3 different options. Like you mentioned, there is the ventilation option, where we're letting more natural air deeper into the mine shafts. And so that involves structural changes to the mine itself. You need to worry about fans, ventilation, you need to worry about air exchange. It can be somewhat costly because you're basically altering the structure of the mine itself. In terms of other options, like you mentioned, there is the electric option. Battery-powered electrical equipment is another way you can go. Obviously, no diesel is going to be put off by electrical equipment. But obviously, mining machinery, any machinery, is going to be a large capital investment for an operation. So that is another option, but it will take time to adjust to that kind of new paradigm around electrical vehicles. Third option you mentioned there, retrofit is kind of the third option, which is kind of the most hands-on, fastest fix to kind of meet regulation. A lot of these machines are in operation right now, maybe recently acquired in the last couple of years, and so by retrofitting the after treatment system in currently active diesel equipment, you can meet regulations without costly changes around the structure of the mine site or new investments for replacement equipment immediately.
Yes, I suppose that's what's driving the retrofit decision in today's market. But I've got to ask you, before you can fix diesel particulate exposure, Holden, where does a mine actually begin? I mean, what kind of baseline data or testing is essential here?
Primarily, you need to identify what the current output of your emissions are around these machines. So basically, you would want to run some form of audit around the DPM put out by the individual machines, establish a baseline. As well, there's other things to consider as well. Honestly, when it comes to emissions, DPM is the main one that is currently regulated, but you also want to be taking a look and trying to establish hydrocarbon count. You're trying to take a look and identify NO2 output as well, just because DPM is one element of the emissions coming out of the back of a machine, but there's a variety of things if you're truly trying to improve worker health that you want to be looking at. But yeah, establishing that baseline
Yep.
is pretty key. So you want to work with generally an operation or a service that can help you identify where you're at right now, what are your highest priority machines to potentially look at for retrofit, and then move forward with their kind of expertise hand in hand.
Now, I was reading ahead of this interview that Australia was an early mover on diesel after treatment in underground mines. How has that experience shaped Mammoth's work in Canada and the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mammoth itself, we just celebrated our 50 years last year of being in business. Been up and running since 70, 74,
Yep.
75. And so as a global leader, as I mentioned, Australia is kind of like pushing for that more restrictive, more safe sort of guideline at the moment. It's always been that way. Australia has sort of led the charge around worker health and safety. Obviously, it's a very mining focused region. And because of that, Mammoth has sort of been a part of that for, as you mentioned, the past 2 decades. We were kind of on the front lines of this regulation. And so, as these regulations came into place, as the focus around worker safety kind of grew, Mammoth was there to consistently improve our products, ensure that we were helping the mine sites and operations reach these requirements. And that's kind of carried over to North America and the globe. In Canada, we've been up and running since 2014. Obviously, there's no small amount of mining operations here as well. And so, over the past decade plus, we've also been able to assist mining operations in Ontario, Quebec, across North America, reach the ever changing DPM regulation levels and improve that worker health and safety.
So we know that mines operate in different geologies and different geographies, both north and southern hemisphere here. Even on the surface, Tier 4 and related machines come with complex after-treatment systems from the factory, right? I mean, what headaches are operators running into, especially in colder northern climates?
Yeah, it's interesting because as we mentioned, when we're looking at retrofits or trying to improve a lot of these machines that don't necessarily have up to snuff emission systems, the colloquially known tier 1 to 3 machines. That's one element of it, but as you mentioned, with mine sites that have emission systems already built in, the tier 4, stage 5 machines, you can still run into issues with those emission systems, especially honestly in a northern environment. Yeah, so these machines come ready from the factory with an emission system built in, but that still requires
Yeah.
maintenance, and that's the biggest thing I think that some people don't necessarily realize. Just because it comes with a pre-installed system doesn't mean that you don't have to be cleaning those filters. It doesn't mean that you don't have to be conducting regular maintenance. You risk issues around performance, around the idle times, around potential freeze-ups, crystallization. All of these things are still a concern, even for Tier 4 or Stage 5 machines.
So finally, if I'm a mine manager listening to this, Holden, and want to get ahead of emissions and heat issues, what does working with Mammoth actually look like on the ground?
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. Um, We take a very hand-in-hand partnership approach to working with our mine sites. We would come on site and, like I mentioned previously, conduct the audits, help identify what the main polluters are, the main risks to health and safety, the easiest shifts to make you able to reach regulation. And then it's identifying the individual needs of the mine site. Like you mentioned, there's different equipment on different sites, there's different environmental factors. And so in order to be able to help our customers have that sort of holistic solution, we can offer not only DPFs or emission solution retrofit. If they have the tier 4 to stage 5 machines, we can assist them with a cleaning program for their filters, set up a replacement emissions schedule depending on when their maintenance might be required. And if they're in that colder region, we have a number of products like our freeze guard, our thermal blankets that'll help the regeneration, because heat is very key in ensuring long-term function of the DPFs as it sort of burns up the matter that is left behind in the filters there. So basically, Mammoth acts as your part of your team almost. We work hand in hand with you in your operation so that emissions isn't something that the customer necessarily needs to worry about. We take that off your plate so that you can focus on the daily operation of your mine site and ensuring that you're getting the most out of your machines and your work hours.
Well, it sounds interesting indeed. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Group Marketing Operations Manager Holden Bunko. That's from Mammoth Equipment and Exhaust. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Devin.